Shale gas is part of the future and we will make it happen.
Out of control!
I run a local business which I've closed for the day-to-day. There are things that we can campaign against and lobby for, but when we're damaging our planet with irreversible action, that is just a sobering thought.
Can you see what's happening?
Yeah.
Keep moving forward for us, please.
The government is going behind everybody's back and in league with the big, rich company owners. And it's all about money. It's not even about gas. The ground is just being pulled from under everybody's feet, fairly quietly, really.
Exploitation of unconventional gas involves pumping millions of gallons of water, sand and chemicals into the geology to fracture the rock and release the trapped gas. No more than 40% of what is pumped down the well is actually recovered. Where the other 60% goes is neither predictable nor controllable.
We have experience elsewhere. There is plenty of hundreds of thousands of wells have been drilled or fractured in other countries around the world. We've had onshore drilling in Britain for both oil and gas since the end of the First World War.
Unconventional gas exploitation is a relatively new technology. It certainly has been around for less than 2 decades. So whilst on the conventional process, water and sand are pumped down to stimulate the well under relatively low pressures, for unconventional hydrocarbons extraction, the water, sand and a cocktail of chemicals are pumped under enormous pressure.
We already have a system of regulation in place, and I can assure you we're going to take very great care that there is no damage to the water supply and that there aren't risks involved in the fracturing before any of it's allowed to go ahead.
The track record of the unconventional gas industry in the UK is somewhat less than impressive. Of course, it started with the seismic events being triggered by Quadrilla at Priest Hall, where they continued to frack even though they knew they had damaged the casing of the well. Then iGas at Barton Moss contaminated the well site. This really only came into the public domain after a series of court hearings, and the press restrictions were actually only lifted in early March of 2015. iGas and Peel Holdings are denying that they were responsible for these chemical leaks, but without providing access for the independent expert to return to the site, then unfortunately one can only assume that they have something to hide. Now, more recently, in East Yorkshire, Rathlin Energy were responsible for considerable property damage as a result of their seismic testing.
Possibly the largest single piece of damage that has been caused is that there is a fishing lake which started to go down immediately following the detonation of these charges, began to fall by about 2 inches a day. Having been informed of this, Rathlin Energy paid Yorkshire Water to allow water to go into that lake on a daily basis.
The water coming from Yorkshire Water is going to be chlorinated?
Chlorinated, yes, and you can only put so much of that into the lake before you will begin to have problems with the fish suffering from chlorination of the water.
And the business owner has potentially lost £1,000 a week in terms of revenue. And although initially Rathlin gave the business owner the impression that they would rectify this because they absolutely accepted that they were responsible, they've now reneged on that and have effectively forced the business owner to initiate legal proceedings.
I think there's a huge amount of myths that are being put round in order to frighten people about shale gas extraction.
Little baby Cameron, he's a child in my eyes, a very spoilt, ignorant child.
We can see in the United States it can be extracted safely and cleanly, providing effective, low-cost energy, green energy for our homes and for our businesses. Green energy for our homes and for our businesses. Green energy for our homes and for our businesses.
Anyone that believes that the industry does not know the damage that they're going to do in the UK, even though it's a worldwide industry and it's been doing it for decades, you have to be delusional.
Ian Crane went to Australia to meet the people who live in the heart of the Gasfields. If we don't listen to their story, it will soon be our story.
When they came, they said, look, you know, all we want to do is drill a hole over there. It's an exploration hole. All there'll be is a pipe sticking out of the ground. And I said, but what about if you find gas? Because I'm figuring no one spends money drilling a hole if you don't think you're going to get gas. And they said, oh, well, all we'll do is hook a pipe onto it and we'll run it up to the current Roma to Brisbane natural gas, conventional natural gas pipeline, and we'll pump it into Brisbane. And you think, well, you know, that doesn't sound too bad. But of course, an unconventional gas well isn't a pipe out of the ground. With it comes all of the drilling and the destruction. That's a hectare. Forever. We're going to have 280,000 hectares plus tracks, compressor stations, water holding ponds, water evaporation ponds, even though they've got a nice fancy name now. They call them water transfer ponds.
Evaporation ponds, which evaporate highly toxic chemicals into the air, have been banned due to public pressure. So QGC have simply changed the name to water transfer ponds.
In the UK, the Infrastructure Act, which passed into law in late February of 2015, effectively establishes a political definition of a hydraulic fracture. If less than 1,000 cubic metres of water is used on a single stage, or less than 10,000 cubic metres of water are used for the entire process, then it will not be regarded as a hydraulic fracture. So under this new definition, what occurred at Priest Hall would not actually be regarded as a hydraulic fracture. The reality is that a frack is a frack is a frack.
Remember at the start of this, I very strongly believed that my government knew what it was doing. And now I believe my government knows exactly what it's doing, but it's not doing anything for Australians or humans. And your government in Great Britain is going to do exactly the same thing to you if you let it.
Ryan's water bore was contaminated by QGC in 2008.
One day the grandchildren were in the bath and they started screaming and they had a red ring. Everything that was in the water was burnt.
We're treating your issue seriously and we're trying to investigate what the cause of the problem is.
Yeah, I'm getting no gas measurements. Two different issues and one thing.
Look at all those vapours.
Yeah, I'm getting no gas measurements.
Have a look, it's a breezy day. You're not going to get any measurements up here. It's exactly the same as the bastards when they first sampled it. They sampled on a windy day and well away from the source. Every time they went near the source, it did this. So toxic to make our grandchildren unwell. So if you think the coal seam gas industry is safe, if you think it's regulated, if you think it's policed, look at the bubbles and have a listen to the machine.
When you're actually using a high pressure 42-inch pipeline to flow at those high rates 24/7.
Yeah, 2,000 psi.
That's when you see it like that. Unfortunately, like they have in the United States, and now it's Australia. Next it will be the UK.
Just imagine this industrialisation of your region and try and tell me that you're not going to be impacted health-wise. Your food, your water, your air. You know, when we come out from Toowoomba now, there's times when you can see the brown dome over the gas field. You drive out into a brown dome. Our rainwater tanks prove that the brown dome is raining down into and settling on our roofs, raining into our rainwater tanks. The radioactivity is there, the heavy metals are there. If you can't trust rainwater, what are you meant to trust? So that's why you've got to stop it before it starts. You can't trust the rainwater out here, and people that don't realise that are in for a really sad future.
Like the Monk Ranch, John Jenkins' property is surrounded by QGC gas wells.
We heard a bit of hoo-ha about the industry coming, the odd sign appeared, but we just thought, we've got a bad mortgage that eventually they'll come here, hopefully, and we'll get a couple of wells, we weren't against the industry. It was one of those things, you sort of thought, okay, we might do all right out of this industry. And within, probably 6 months of them sneaking out of the scrub over the back, we started getting coated with all sorts of crap. And yeah, you just knew that you had to go the other way, but when you start making complaints to the industry and they sort of come around and have a look and say, oh, there's nothing to see here, you start to wonder. And then other people in town just said, well, John, you're complaining for no reason type thing. And then, like I say, it took a little while before we could no longer drink the water. And we knew, that we were in trouble then. It was just too late.
So those people who do take the attitude of, she'll be right, mate.
And she won't be right. I'm telling you, it won't be right. After, like I said, we had that attitude early days, and that lasted for probably, the first 18 months the gas company were around us. And, like I say now, the paint falling off the cars, this used to be a beautiful green lawn with roses in it. She won't be right. It will kill everything.
It's common local knowledge that workers in the gas industry do not drink local town water. Their drinking water is supplied.
You buy it, bottled water, and like I keep saying to people, that's fine until they contaminate all the aquifers. Then the people in the city will understand. When they can't buy uncontaminated bottled water, we've put in a request to the health department to supply water. But with that, I said I would like a copy of, a radiation test to make sure that it's safe, and just no response. In the last, I think it's been about 6 weeks, haven't heard back from them.
Well, I guess the problem that the gas companies have is if the Queensland Health Authority acknowledges that the water's contaminated, then it points the finger at the gas company. So if they don't test it, then there's no blame.
That's right, because the gas company are the ones topping up the river, which is topping up the town water supply. And so the easiest thing is just to ignore me, because, like you say, if they don't test, they don't find it.
Just like the cancer clusters that are starting to pop up out here now, the health department is refusing to link them to the gas industry in any way, and yet they're residents that live near the gas industry who were perfectly healthy, and some of them have actually already died. And the health department and the Liberal National Party really tore strips out of the local member who brought it up, and they just ridiculed him for even caring about his constituents.
When I had a asthma-induced heart attack when they were doing the pipeline next door, I ended up at the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane with at least 5 gas company workers in the beds next to me, suffering the same conditions that I was. But back as far as 2007, Aaron had a rash, really bad rash on him.
Aaron is your disabled son?
Yeah. We had all been going to the doctor with flu symptoms, and it wasn't until years later that we heard people in the estate had the same symptoms as what we were having. That's when the penny dropped. To have them write any of our complaints down on the computers, they wouldn't do it. They were just as though we were just complaining for nothing. Even to get the doctors to do something about it, they won't do anything about it. They'll put our son on a 6-year waiting list to have his ears checked because he had blood coming out of his ears.
When the Jenkins consulted their doctor about their son's health, they were advised to fit him with a gas mask.
taste in your mouth that's just there, you know, and people sort of say, oh, but it can't be that bad. And you say, well, when your nose is burning, your eyes are burning, and you got that terrible oily sort of taste, I said, you know, the flares are not, they're just venting. But I said, and then other times I said, you just got the dry taste in your mouth. I said, you just want to go to sleep, and it's like little fibres in your throat, you know, the flare is on.
It's not nice when you live day to day looking at wind direction. You get to the point where wind is scary and the stillness is scary. I mean, you live your life in a constant state of what is going on around us.
One of the breaches that Rathlin Energy were guilty of at West Newton was cold venting. One of the problems we have in the UK is that there is no requirement for infrared monitoring of the flares. So the way in which we knew that they were cold venting was because the protection community at West Newton and local residents, some up to a mile to a mile and a half away, suffered from incredibly strong odours.
It got right into the houses. It was very distressing, very strong odour. That not only did it get into the houses, but that anything that they'd had outside, including their washing, was very, very badly tainted.
The people in both your country and in mine believe that this country has got a regulatory body looking over it. But in fact, the regulatory body of the CSG compliance unit consists of 2 people for 10,000 gas wells. Do you really and truly think a corporation wants to be responsible for this in 100 years' time, or 50 years' time, or 20 years' time, when that whole well casing completely rots away and there's gas gushing out of there if there's any gas left? And that's why they have the landowner sign for the liability.
But it's not a gamble with the environment. It'll be very strictly regulated here. They will have to have proper permissions to protect the environment and to make sure that any drilling that's done is safe and does not harm the local community.
The reality is that neither the Health and Safety Executive nor the Environment Agency have sufficient resource or even sufficient expertise to monitor these operations as they are leading the public to believe that they will. In reality, the companies are simply required to send an end-of-week report to the Environment Agency and to the Health and Safety Executive, simply stating that everything's okay, nothing to worry about, keep moving along.
If at this point in time you can stand in front of a drill rig and stop it from getting on, the easiest drill rig to stop's the first one. The hardest one will be the 10,000th. It'll be more than that though in the UK, because you're doing shale over there predominantly. Shale needs a lot of wells, needs a lot of destruction, poisons a lot of water.
If this gets the tiniest foothold, you know, you're done. So it's now or it's never. Don't think that you've got that long, because it's now or never. So you do it now, you stand up now, and you find something within yourself that you didn't think was there. You know, that's the important thing. You will be confronted by police. They wear their Kevlar suits and it's a big intimidation thing.
Hey, you've got nobody in front of you. Keep walking. You're delaying this lady. Keep going. Don't push back on her. Keep moving. Now. If you've got to keep going. Keep moving, please.
It's up to the people of the UK to get their cameras in the face of the Kevlar security, the Kevlar police who are paid by the corporations. And we have to say no. That's all it is. But it's more than just saying no at a meeting. It's intent. It's the intent of no. It's the knowing that you mean no. That's when you will be unbelievably powerful. You come out in numbers. If they see your grandmother and the mother and the child come out and say, we are not going to accept this, then they are finished. But that's what it takes. Don't sit back and think that anybody's looking out for you. It's you.
The concerted efforts of everyday people across the country are stopping the fracking juggernaut in its tracks.
Over the last 2 years, the anti-fracking community in the UK has grown to over 300 groups, and it is still growing. This is a topic that has brought people together in this country like nothing before. And it's having tremendous effect. Against all expectations, there has still not been a further hydraulic fracture of an unconventional well in the UK since the moratorium was lifted in December 2012.
You've got to stop it at the start. We were asleep. We had an excuse. If you're obviously watching me whinge to you now, you don't have an excuse. You don't have an excuse. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Okay, you choose whether you're going to let it happen. But I'm telling you, and you're not going to want to live in a gas field. And remember, I have the added bonus of having 5,000 acres around me without a gas well. In 5,000 acres, you might have 100 landowners or 200 landowners, and you're going to have 100 gas wells.
If this industry was to get underway in the UK, some 40 million people would potentially be living within 1 mile of a fracked gas well.
This is Ian R. Crane. It's the evening of Monday 23rd of May 2016. I'm standing here in front of County Hall, Northallerton, North Yorkshire, and it's now less than 1 hour since the Planning Committee of North Yorkshire County Council ruled in favour of permitting Third Energy to frack their existing well KM8 at Kirby Misperton. But it's not over. Obviously Third Energy still have to mobilise, they still have to initiate the process. There will be plenty of warning for the local community, and well, I think that the attitude of the local population is that it ain't over until the fat lady sings, and she ain't even warmed up yet. There's a long, long, long way to go here, but the British government and the unconventional gas industry have certainly done everything they possibly can to take the game to the next level. Meanwhile, of course, we have to watch out for the other companies like INEOS and iGas and Quadrilla as they put in planning applications literally right across the whole of the north of England. Sadly, if we look at what this industry has contributed elsewhere in the world, it's a legacy of contamination and negative health impacts, and we have to make sure that doesn't happen in this country.
It's part of the future, and we will make it happen.
They're gonna drill down beneath this town, no fracking way. The wheels are turning, can you hear that sound? No fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground, no fracking way. Will we let that happen while we're still around? No fracking way. When there's no water left and there's none to drink, no fracking way. Is that when the suits will stop and think? No fracking way. Just how low can they stoop and sink? No fracking way. While Mother Earth quakes and there's the link, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town, I said, no fracking way. No one asked us if it was okay, no fracking way. But they're making their plans come what may, no fracking way. They'll wipe us all out if they get their way, no fracking way. But we stand united and we say, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town. I said, no fracking way. They're gonna dig down beneath this town. No fracking way. The wheels are turning, can you hear that sound? No fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground. No fracking way. Will we let that happen while we're still around? No fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna drill down beneath this town. I said, no fracking way. No fracking way, I said, no fracking way. They're gonna push poison into the ground. I said, no fracking way.